Hey guys, this is Yoda. So since the last trinket video, I've had the chance to play with most of the trinkets. In this video, we'll go over what exactly they do and what I think is going to be useful and which ones are complete trash. So we'll start with the raid. We'll go over boss by boss, I guess. This trinket, I don't think anyone has ever actually used it. I'm pretty sure it's going to be complete trash, similar to most of the other trinkets from the raid. This trinket is actually undertuned, so originally we thought it was overtuned because it has high procs per minute. But then we realized the antenna only works like every few seconds. So the procs per minute are not actually fully utilized. So this trinket is worse than a pacemaker, unfortunately. You probably won't use it. Maybe as a second trinket. This healer trinket is actually extremely strong. The shield amount is the same amount that the tank trinket gives to the tank himself. Not to say the tank trinket's any good, but basically it's like a 1.5 minute cooldown mass barrier available in your trinket slot. If this doesn't get nerfed, it is very likely that every healer and every tank will wear this trinket in Mythic Plus. This tank trinket, as we mentioned, is complete trash. It heals for 4.6 million, or shields for 4.6 million. We look at the mud trinket, it shields for 17 million, so 4 times the shield. And the mud trinket has cooldown reduction, so it's not actually a 2-minute cooldown, it's more like a 1 minute in the dungeons you use it. So it's like shielding for twice as much as this one. So this trinket is complete trash. Never equip it. In fact, if you were going to equip this trinket, you should just equip Lumithar's instead, because you shield your whole team instead of just yourself. Alright, Araz's Ritual Forge, this trinket is extremely good. Any class that is on a 2-minute cooldown will pretty much use this no matter what. It works. It says strength on it, but it works for int and agility as well. And pretty much every 2-minute class is going to use this. So yeah, good luck if you don't raid. This brand is much better than I originally thought. So when I first read it, I thought it could only proc every 15 seconds, but it can basically only gain a stack every 15 seconds and it can proc whenever. So it actually is quite similar to Signet brand from Dragonflight. For tanks only, it only works on tanks. I think that makes it a very good trinket in Mythic Plus. Signet brand was extremely strong, especially when you're doing like world first keys, when you're actually trying to push a lot of damage out of your tank. This is in keys, this is like maybe more than 10% single target and more than 5% of my overall. So pretty good trinket. Most likely will see play. It does have like the Eye of Kazan clause where you lose stacks out of combat. They don't actually time out, you just lose stacks. But yeah, this trinket, most likely you'll be using this trinket and playing around it as a tank. Fractalus has the Nether Prism, so this trinket is very good for any class that isn't on a 2-minute cooldown. If you're on a 2-minute cooldown, you're just going to use the Ritual Forge. If you're not on a 2-minute cooldown, this is probably really good for you. It only works on strength and agility. Basically works like the Spy Master, except it doesn't have passive increase to your main stat. You can activate it to consume all the stacks and increase your agility or strength based on the stacks, and it also has a damage proc. It does not come with any secondaries, however, so it's probably not good for tanks. I think it's like okay for Brewmaster, purely for damage, because Weapons of Order like doesn't really fit with any other unused trinket, and so much of Brewmaster's damage is in Weapons of Order. But defensively, it is very bad. Basically, it only has a damage proc and main stat, which is kind of useless for most tanks. But yeah, that's this trinket. For pretty much every single int user I have seen is using this trinket. Your abilities have a chance to grant you int, increase to 25% when you're below 50% mana. And this is part of a set. All of the set items are from this boss. So this is an example. It's just it's a weapon with a free effect. It does damage or gives you a shield. Pretty much every int user that I have ever seen on the PTR is using both items. So if you're an int user and you don't raid, well, good luck. This is probably what you're going to want to be using. Nexus King, I have not seen people use these trinkets. They're probably not very good. This trinket would be interesting if it was on use and you could pick the ally, but it's just random, so it doesn't always pick the tank, so it doesn't seem very useful at all. This, I think, could be useful if there's like a totem boss or something. But other than that, I don't see it being very useful. Thunder Pool doesn't really have totem bosses. Not looking that closely, but yeah, I don't... Maybe on this boss, you could use it on like a Binding Spear or something, or in this dungeon. But yeah, this trinket is complete trash in keys, potentially playable in raid for like a 10-minute boss fight or something, but in keys it is completely useless. This trinket, as we have mentioned before, is terrible. It is comparable, even after the buff, with an item level 550. Like if you went to Dragonflight with your character, like we're currently going to be in Season 3 War Within, but if you went to Dragonflight and did the mega dungeon and farmed prophetic stone scales, that trinket would be better than this trinket, because that trinket at least gives you 1 to 2 seconds of immunity and 20% DR after it procs. This trinket does none of that. Instead, you actually have, it has a negative effect. You have to heal yourself, and on top, when it procs, and on top of that, it doesn't even give you any immunity. It just heals you to 20% when it procs. The passive effect is like non-zero. It does some damage and some healing, like especially noticeable on maybe a warrior or a paladin. But you would just rather wear like a crit stat stick. This trinket is so bad. Do not use it. All right, speaking of stat sticks, here are the dungeon trinkets. So Arakara has Stills the Sackroot. This trinket is completely useless. This trinket is completely useless. This trinket is very good, obviously. I can see a lot of people using it. The trinket pool is a lot better than War Within Season 1, so some people may not use this, especially for tanks. Like we have the Brand, we have the Pacemaker, so this trinket might not actually see that much play, but early on especially, it's going to be very good. All these trinkets are useless. This one is okay for int/agility users. Don't really know any tanks that use all the stats, but it's like not, I guess it's not terrible. This is useless and this is useless. Priory, this trinket is still very good. This is one of those trinkets I was talking about. Tanks have a really good dungeon pool, pool of trinkets this season. So this is still as good as it was in the previous season. It gives you a lot of crit, really good single target damage. See a lot of people playing it in raid. In keys, there is a decent chance that you won't play this because after the nerfs, it's really hard to keep high uptime on the crit buff. So sometimes you'll be stuck in defense mode, quote unquote, and defense mode is actually worse at defense than the offense mode. It's actually just completely useless. So you probably won't wear this if that's the case in the dungeon you're playing, which is kind of the case, I think, in all the dungeons. Maybe not Ecodome, but we'll see. I'll have to test this more, but basically, if you can have high uptime on the Radiance buff, this trinket is very good. You cannot, like, if you take so many ticks of damage that it flips the pages so fast to defense mode and you don't have the trinket available, then it's going to be bad. So completely depends for this trinket. But if you can keep it in Radiance, it's very good. Into the Priory, average 2-minute on use. Unfortunately, Ares has a Ritual Forge this season, so if you're like not a raider, you can use this, but if you're a raider, then you'll get a bonus by using the Ritual Forge. Bursting Light Shard, very good healer damage trinket. Could see this seeing a lot of play. Floodgate, no one has ever used any of these two trinkets, and I don't see that changing in the new season. T4 and Pacemaker is an ore budgeted crit stat stick. So I see this seeing a lot of play. Pretty much every tank is probably going to use this, and then the second trinket will be Brand or whatever. But yeah, I see people using, basically defaulting to this one and then using a trinket like to swap around with as the other slot. Ritual Mud, same as last season. It'll probably be very good in Priory and Floodgate, depending on what you're fighting against, but not as good outside of that, I think. Maybe like Arakara if you're having trouble surviving, but it's really useful against the first boss of Priory if you happen to be going left or your classes sucks against it, like Warrior or Paladin. Floodgate is really useful against Swamp Face and Big Mama. Depending on what you need as a tank, it can be good. However, as I mentioned in previous videos, if you're just trying to use it to like become baseline tankier, you'd rather take a crit stat stick. Ecodome, unfortunately, does not feature anything useful out of the trinkets. This is a 1-minute 30 on use, which if your class is 1-minute 30 and agility or int, which I don't know of any classes, then this could be somewhat useful, but it is kind of understated. It's basically like a house of cards that doesn't ever gain any stacks. Yeah, I don't see this being that useful, but maybe? I don't know. Probably not going to be used. Probably not going to be using this. Probably rather use like a passive stat trinket or a raid trinket or something. Or a delve trinket. These two, I've never seen anyone use any of them. They probably suck. Puzzle Atonement, this trinket is complete trash. Do not use it. This trinket is extremely overtuned. It is not on the vendor. When I said people are probably going to use Pacemaker plus another trinket, it might be this one. But right now, we don't know what the plan is with this. It's a 1-minute 30 on use, and it gives 30,000 crit at 681 when you hit 5 things. Or when you hit when you hit a lot of enemies, it can go up to 30,000. I don't really know what the plan is with that. Even if it didn't have the second part, it would still be overtuned. Like just this first part, channel for 1 second and increase your crit by 13,000 is already OP. And then the second line just like it's twice as good, maybe not twice as good, like 1.5 times as good as a trinket should be. Then you put the second line in, and it's 3 times as much stat as you're supposed to be getting from a trinket. So I'm not sure who is bad at math at Blizzard, but yeah, that's going to get changed for sure. Not sure what's going to end up happening, but yeah, for now, this trinket is bonkers broken. It's not even on the vendor. Anyone on the PTR who's doing insane damage, especially a Frost Decay, I bet you can probably inspect them, and they're probably wearing this trinket. So yeah, this trinket's very broken right now. Kazavesh, so this trinket is bugged. It would be extremely good, but it is bugged. Right now, it says it absorbs 1.2 million per blow. That's not what it does. It absorbs 1.2 million per time the trinket procs. So when the trinket procs, you're supposed to essentially have 10% DR for 12 seconds. But actually what happens is it procs, and then like the first 3 damage events already proc it, and then it's gone. So you have 10% DR for 3 seconds. So it's basically complete trash right now because of the bug. Hopefully they fix that. This trinket no one has ever used it, so I'm gonna assume it's not good. Same with these trinket and this trinket. They're both complete trash. There are many better options available. Valea's is a very good trinket. It's basically 95% of the stats to yourself, and then 10% of the budget to your ally. So if you count that, it's 105% of a budget of a stat stick. But, you know, if you only care about yourself, then it's minus 5%. So it kind of depends how much you value stats on your allies. But yeah, this is an over-budgeted stat stick, and you can kind of pick the stats, so it is very nice. I would say it's not as good as the Pacemaker if you like crit, but if you're playing double stat stick, this will probably be the second one, especially if you have access to all mythics. And for the Delve trinkets, we'll go to this guy. The Delve pool is actually pretty good. Mind Fracturing Odium, I believe, is the best one. It's Strength Agility, has a random chance to proc haste. I think if you only read the first line, it's like normal budget, but then if you read the second part, whenever you kill an enemy or an ally dies, you get extra procs. I think that part you just get for free, and you will be killing enemies, and your allies are probably going to be dying, so this is just like over budgeted for a haste stat stick. Unfortunately, it is from a Delve, so it's max hero track, but like early on in the season, I see a lot of people are going to be wearing this. This is a tank trinket, as is the norm for Blizzard tank trinkets. It is completely unusable. Do not equip this over literally anything. This trinket is usable, but worse than crit stat sticks, so I also would not use this. I don't think you will use this, but maybe. You probably will not be using this, let's be honest. And these two, I think, are also not very good. Basically, just use the Odium. There's another trinket I think I missed here. Oh yeah, Void Touch Fragment. This trinket is also quite good. If you don't have a good trinket to use early, you can farm this from a Delve. I think there's also a system where you can farm champion track, like repeatedly farm a champion track trinkets, Delve trinkets from a vendor. So you might be using this or the Odium or something, especially if you're DPS early on in the season. Late season though, I don't see them really be seeing play because they're hero track. All right, that is going to be it for the trinket review. TLDR, pretty much every tank is going to be using some kind of crit trinkets, like either double stat stick here, or the brand, or maybe the on use from hulls if it doesn't get nerfed enough, etc. Hopefully they also fix the codex bug, but I'm not really holding out too much hope. If they fix the codex, then you might use Pacemaker Codex. We'll see. And the raid Death Trinket is complete garbage. Do not equip that. Alright, thanks for watching. Peace out.